Welcome to Portugal, Matt. Welcome to Lisbon. Welcome to the wannabe entrepreneur mansion. It's not a mansion. It's not a mansion for the people. It's 80 square meters, I think. But yeah, it's great to have you here. It's so cool. Yeah,
Thanks,
welcome.
man. Thanks so much. I love your place. Lisbon's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, man, I can't believe it took me so long to get here.
I do know that Canadians are always very nice. So it's no, really, like everyone I've met, like it's like it's really hard to say something that you don't like. You'll be like, yeah, I love this. So I'm not sure if I'll take this. Are you really being honest or just being nice?
Oh, I love this place. Are you kidding me? Come on.
So today we'll have crossover in the podcast, indie hacking podcasts. Matt is the indie hacker, and together with Mark LG is the host of Startup to Something. I keep saying something to startup.
You got it.
Doesn't it make more sense? Something to startup.
Well, it's like start up to something. Like, what are you getting at? You're getting up to something.
Right. You're starting up to something. All right. I thought it was like, let's get something into a startup. That's kind of always my reasoning. I was like, yeah, it's something. Okay, startup to something, which is like, it's a really cool podcast because it's like the same format that as the wannabe entrepreneur, but you have like a partner to speak to, which is so cool because you have these dynamics. And Mark, that I also interviewed in the podcast, is he's living the dream, right? Like he found the project, he's making enough MRR to like be so relaxed and everything. And every time I listen to you, it's like, yeah, he's me. Like he's, he's like having the same doubts and uncertainties and everything. So today we'll be just, chatting and doing our own version of Startup to Something.
Yeah.
But this time, two equal indie hackers that have still not made it and like are struggling and doing other thing.
I love it.
Perfect. Yeah. So to start things off, I guess you have a bunch of topics there. I also have some topics. You're much more organized than I am because you actually wrote them down. But we have some beer, we have some pastel nata. I think it will be a great conversation. Shall we start by let's introduce ourselves while eating pastel nata.
I'm down. That sounds incredible.
So it's the same pastel nata I had when Anthony was here. I kind of tilted to the camera a little bit.
Without it hitting the floor?
Yeah, well, maybe I can just grab one.
Oh,
so pastel nata, for the people that don't know, go ahead, is like... my favorite dessert, and it's probably the most known here in Portugal. And you can get pastel nata anywhere, but there are particular specialty stores. And this one is a quite known one. They have like multiple stores across Lisbon, I guess the country as well.
Sure.
And this one is called Manteigaria. Well, we're not sponsored to but so want to say the name.
We don't have to say it. Yeah, that's fine.
So let's try it out. I hope that the crunchiness was like caught by the mic. It was so cool. Oh man, what do you think?
It's worth coming to Portugal for. It's so good. They're so simple, but they're so delicious.
They are not easy to make actually. I tried to make this multiple times when living in Germany, but like. It's just, you cannot do it with a normal oven. It needs to be like much warmer.
Okay.
It's like it needs to be super. It's like a pizza oven where like you put it in and in like 5 minutes take it out. It needs to be really really hot. But yeah, these ones are good.
I read once about the origin of pastel nata.
Okay.
That I guess like the religious figures at the time used to starch their clothes using egg whites. So they would order all these eggs and they would have their clothes starched, but all the yolks were left over. And people were like, well, what do we do with the yolks? And that was the birth of, they had to figure out a way to use them, and that's what turned into pastel nata.
I didn't know that.
I don't know if it's true. I just read it, but...
Do you have pastel nata in Canada?
You see it occasionally. We have a lot of Brazilian food just kind of across the country in general. And they always have Castellanata in the windows and that sort of thing. It's always an upsell when you go to checkout.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that they had a lot of Castellanata in Brazil. You can do it. Yeah. Spilled a little bit, but you're getting there. It's fine. Cheers.
Thanks so much for having me. This is great.
No. Matt cleaning the house here. You didn't have to do it. I was joking.
I don't want to build a reputation for myself.
Delicious. So, we're about to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? You want to take the lead?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm a developer by trade. I've been in the field for 12 years, something like that. I worked in Wall Street, and then, I'm originally from Canada. I'm from Montreal. I started my career there. I worked on Wall Street, and then a bunch of Silicon Valley companies with Canadian founders wanted cheaper talent, so they started opening nearshore offices in Montreal. Okay. So I worked for a bunch of Silicon Valley companies. And in about 2019, I kind of looked at my life and thought, I love what I've done. I love all my experience, but I really want to try something out for myself. I got interested in the indie hacker community. I met a bunch of people, and I decided to go out on my own.
Okay.
So I went part-time at my job, which was an awesome opportunity that my boss gave me at the time. So when I originally went independent, it was around this very specific research and development program in Canada. The Canadian government will rebate a lot of your salary spend that you spend on R&D projects. And the idea is for companies that are operating in Canada, this is very, very lucrative. So I had gone through this process a few times with a few different consultants, and I always felt like it was a crappy process. I was always talking with a tax consultant, not with an engineer. So we would have teams of engineers that have consultants asking us dumb questions that we have to figure out how to fit our work into a box. So I thought, why are we not talking with engineers? Why are engineers not going through this process?
Yeah.
So I decided to be that change. So I went to the market and decided to become, so the program is called the Scientific Research and Experimental Development Program. We abbreviated to SHRED.
All right.
And so I became a SHRED consultant. And it worked. It worked really well, actually. I figured out how to start approaching companies, and engineering companies want to talk to me because they want to talk scientifically. They want to talk about the work that they're doing.
Right.
So I was able to penetrate the market. The business was growing. It was doing really well. And I was looking at making my first hire. And then I started to go through this audit process. So every now and then you get, the government will decide to audit you, and the audit process is hard.
Right.
It sucks. And it killed my soul. It was so bad that I decided I couldn't do it anymore. So I fired all my clients and I shut the company down because I just couldn't handle that process of scrutiny by a third party. Because I knew the work that I did was good, and I knew the work that my clients were doing was good. And to have somebody come in and poke needless holes who oftentimes don't understand the work that's being done. They kind of assign you a scientific auditor, but they could come from any walk of life, any background. So they didn't understand what we were doing. And at the end of the day, my client's money was on the line.
Right.
If they get their budget slashed or their reimbursement slashed, it made me feel really bad. So I said, I don't want this to be my life.
Yeah.
So I shut it all down.
So your job, just to do a brief summary.
Yeah.
In Canada, the government decided to support companies that were doing R&D.
That's right.
And you were facilitating the process of companies to get this money.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, to make the claim. Exactly.
Okay. So you would go there. The problem was that they were talking with tax consultants, and there was a misconversation. What is the problem there actually? Why couldn't tax consultants fix that issue?
So the problem is that tax consultants. So this, at the end of the day, the way you get this money from the government is by filing some sort of return. that summarizes the work that you did and how much money you'd like to collect.
Mm-hmm.
So from a finance perspective, you need a tax advisor to help you advise, because it's through the tax regime that this money flows.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of falls into the wheelhouse of a tax professional. But the problem is that that's only the finance part. Creating the reports that you submit and figuring out like what is the total spend and all of that, that's an engineering task.
Right.
And all of these consultancies that specialize in this particular grant, because it is a very popular grant in Canada, they're all tax consultants.
Yeah.
Occasionally there's an engineer that sometimes gets involved, but really most of the time it's, I'm a tax consultant, I give you a form, fill it in, and I'll give it to the government. And,
so you basically started your own company there, right?
Yeah.
And it was growing great. It was a bootstrap company.
Oh,
right?
Completely, yeah.
And then what is the scrutiny? Like, what would they do? They would show me your paper, show me your work.
Yeah, sometimes. So often they would say we have to be able to see. They say that so first of all you have to produce evidence of all of the R&D that you're doing. So the best way to start is to say, well, let's define the R&D process.
Right.
There's a hypothesis-based question, and I can't reason the answer. I have to experiment in order to prove that this hypothesis is true or not.
Yeah.
And then we go through these iterations in an attempt to figure out, like, can we answer this process? Can we answer the hypothesis? Can we disprove it?
Mm-hmm.
And in order to back up the hypothesis testing you're doing, you need to have contemporaneous documentation. You need to show notes, meetings, diagrams, anything that you're doing to help the government understand the scientific method that you're going through. And
it was your responsibility to show that.
Oh, it's my responsibility to help engineers to pull that together, make sure that they're doing it in the day-to-day.
Right.
Because oftentimes, like, how many times have we gone to a whiteboard, drawn a bunch of stuff, and then like not taken a picture or erased it, and it's lost.
You need to take a picture of everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, the documentation it's really important. Like the government is giving a lot of money, and they want to know
how much money
funding. For Canadians, so if you're a Canadian-based company, if you're a Canadian-owned company, a controlled company, and you're working within Canada, it's depending on the province you're in, it could be 60%.
60% of the budget is paid by
a person's salary. It could be returned in cash.
Of the salary.
Yeah, in cash.
Why is Canada supporting this R&D?
It's because
so much.
Canada wants more technology in Canada. So, like, for example, like Shopify is a great example. Shopify
is it Canadian?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
It's based in Ottawa, and it is it has thousands of employees.
Okay.
And like all the revenue that it makes, all that tax goes right back to Canada. So they say, great, this is our ability to fund operations.
That's very interesting, because I would say that most of the companies that make money, they don't necessarily require R&D. Like most of the businesses that make a lot of money, I don't know, how do you qualify R&D, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's take Mark's example, right? Like with Power Importer, there's not a lot of R&D necessary for that. Like you don't need to discover something new.
Mm-hmm.
You just build something and make. Is that considered to be R&D, like to explore a new idea?
Right. So this is very interesting, because this is oftentimes what software companies struggle with, because we say, well, it didn't work, and then I wrote some code and now it works, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, like, we are trying and testing things all the time.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is framing and just saying, like, no, you actually were trying things, and you were trying to pull things off the shelf.
Right.
You were interested in buying something to try to go faster. But it turns out the problem you have is unique as far as you can tell.
Right.
So, and it's about taking that problem and relaying it to the steps you're taking to solve it.
It does look a little bit like a boring job.
Oh,
isn't it? Like, for an engineer that work at Wall Street and a bunch of Silicon Valley companies, then you get there and they're like, make sure to take a picture of the whiteboard. Is it like, were you passionate about that? Like, minus the other thing, would you like, if that wasn't the issue, would you have continued?
Yeah, I would have. It's less about, like, that paperwork aspect is only a small part. The really fun part is talking with other developers.
Right.
What are you working on? What'd you work on last month? Like, oh, tell me about that. Tell me about that technology. Why did you pick that? why not do it this other way?
Yeah.
Did you think about this? And then learning about the interesting constraints that are actually that are under the surface. And then it's about taking those constraints and mining them for the real R&D that's happening.
Interesting.
So talking with devs is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Mm-hmm. So that was the part that I got a lot of enjoyment out of.
So then the other thing kind of was a deal breaker for you.
Yeah.
And what did you do next?
So I fired all my clients.
Okay.
And I'll say it now, if there's any Canadians that are listening to this that are interested in that, go do what I did and start that company, because every single one of my clients were upset. They were like, we love working with you and you solve a real problem for us and we're so sad to see you go.
So, it seems that like there's also a need for someone to fix the auditing problem for you.
Yeah.
You need someone someone to be in between the government and your company somehow.
Yeah, I mean that's a very tricky problem because it's so multifaceted. Like you're dealing with a professional, somebody, the auditors they hire come from different substantive areas, so they are bringing their eye to your R&D process.
Okay.
So we're building software, but then you could be given an environmental engineer, and that person is looking for the scientific method. Yeah. They might not understand the ins and outs of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's how can we take what we've done and make it really clear to that person where the R&D
Okay.
was.
Okay.
And it's really hard because, again, just like we talked about, to have an engineer be like, well, it didn't work, I wrote some code and now it worked. To have somebody say, well, explain the scientific method of that to me is grueling, because they don't know what to say. They're just saying, I wrote some code and it worked.
Right.
But really, they were engaged in a process and they need coaching and they need help. That's why it's so stressful to go through those things.
Yeah, got it. So after that, what did you do when you fired off all of your clients?
Yeah. So I let go of all of my clients, and I was deciding what I was going to do next. Mm-hmm. And one of my associates, who was a shred consultant like me, I had gone to him for some help on a few things, and he said, if you're looking for freelance work, because he knew I was technical, he said, I'm a crypto trader. So I've written a bunch of models and I'm looking to backtest all these models. Mm-hmm. Right. If you're looking for freelance work, I'd love to work with you. So I said, well, I'm not making any money right now. I'll take on some freelance work. Why not? So that was my first foray into crypto. So I come from Wall Street. I was familiar with a lot of what he was doing. So I wrote a backtester for him. So, that was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of pulling data, cleaning data, learning how to run things in a huge parallel environment, how to iterate and hone in on different patterns and strategies. And I worked with him for probably 6 months, pretty much full time. And then Mark and I started the podcast, and it's kind of just been a lot of freelancing since then. Mm-hmm. So I finished up with the crypto trader, and then I was brought on by a friend. He was looking for help. He was building an NFT game. So I did, getting more into crypto. I did a bunch of smart contract development, a bunch of application development, and I'm still working with him today. I've been freelancing, what is supposed to be part-time. Yeah. But, I'm so involved in the project I'm supposed to do 20 hours a week, or that's kind of what we originally discussed. Yeah. But it's never 20. It's always 30 hours or more. Okay. It's a very small crew, and there's a lot of work to do, and I feel a lot of ownership over this project. So it's somehow an entrepreneurial project for you as well, right? Because you have kind of built it almost from the start. Yeah, I mean this is kind of a pattern for me, and I'd love to know if you have this same problem, but it's the issue of boundaries. Like when you have work that you're being called to do, or you've made an agreement with someone and they need your help so that they can make money. Yeah. And then you have your own project on the side, and you say, well, I'm going to split it 50-50 or 60-40. Are you able to do that? Well, I guess we can get into a little bit my background, because that will somehow explain that. So similar to you, I'm like a software developer and worked for
Trivago, I don't know if you know this company.
I know that company, of course, yeah.
It's a cool company because they did so much marketing that like everyone knows it.
Yeah.
So it's great for my resume. So worked for Trivago. Seriously, like there's a lot of people that left Trivago for a long time and they still have like ex-Trivago in their LinkedIn profile, which I find hilarious. So yeah, ex-Trivago, then worked for a startup. So I was living in Düsseldorf, Germany. Work in a startup, also in the traveling industry. This startup gets acquired by Trivago.
Oh.
So I go back to Trivago. And then I've been like an entrepreneur all my life. Like it's really, when I think about it, on like my childhood, not childhood, but like I guess preteens, even years, like there's a lot of people that say like, yeah, I always knew that I want to be a doctor. I always knew I want to be whatever. And I didn't know what I wanted to be. But if I think really into like my first memories, like with my friends and everything, I remember like selling bookmarks to my friends back in school, to the point where the teachers like, hey, you cannot make money out of this. Like, oh, okay, I didn't know. So like we're drawing and everything, and they're like selling it. So yeah, it's definitely something that it's somehow in my blood. Like, and then when I started working in these companies, after a while, I'll be always trying to like start my own thing inside the company, right?
Okay.
So I started a bunch of things in Trivago, and it's like really cool for me, really cool, interesting projects. Like my famous one was called Image Inspiration, and that's how I call it. But the idea was like, you see a picture, you click on it, and then we find destinations all around the world where you can find similar landscapes.
Oh,
so like we use like machine learning and everything, and I like it was even on the website for a little bit. But like Trivago was so focused on the main metric to make money, which is like clicks, that there was no space for innovation. So in the startup, when I worked in the startup, it was completely different. Like you have the ownership, as you're saying. Like, yeah, it's amazing. You really feel that if it wasn't for you, this company wouldn't exist, would die, or like you really make a difference, a huge impact. So I thought like, this is great. I love this. But still, after a while, I was like, it's not mine. Now I realized what is the problem. I didn't back then. Like, but why do I still sometimes feel like I don't want to do this anymore? Why do I sometimes feel that I want to quit, right? And you see there's a lot of people doing this. Like a lot of people in our area, like they quit after one year or like 2 years. Like we don't understand why. Well, for me, it's obvious. It was like, I need to do something that is my own. So when Trivago like acquired this company, I decided to okay, let's leave and let's focus now 100% in my own projects. Also because I knew that I couldn't do something else. Some people told me like, yeah, you can do maybe half. I couldn't do that. Like as you said, like I would get too much focus on the job that I have to do. I feel that I need to deliver, that people are paying me for it. So I would definitely work more than that. And I need just the mental space to focus only in my own projects. So I started doing that. I started with an app. It's like in the sustainability area. At the same time, I started a podcast. And the rest is kind of history, because like the podcast kind of opened up this whole community of indie makers that had no idea it existed, right? So I started like going on Twitter, meeting people, interviewing people. Then I created a community because of the podcast. Initially, the community was just a way to somehow get some perks to the people that supported the podcast. Then I realized, wow, this is super valuable. Like people are really, chatting with each other. It's so much fun here that maybe this is the value. So I never thought that was even possible to make money out of a community, that people actually pay for it.
Sure.
And then that has been my main source of income. I've started a bunch of things as well and tried a bunch of things, small projects that mostly didn't work. And the business of the community has been very slowly growing. So it's really frustrated because I'm at the moment at the 550 MRR, which is still obviously not enough to live. I'm kind of paying my rent and that's it. My share of the rent and that's it.
Sure.
So I've been kind of exploring this new project and trying to see if I can come up with a way to make this community better and to acquire more clients. And recently, I've been focusing on maybe trying to get a job or a side. Now I want my indie making projects to be my main job, and then I want to find a side job. And now the side job is is the real job, let's say.
Right.
And that's basically me. That's where I'm at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about side jobs. How do you see that? Is that something you want to do a certain number of hours per week, or do you kind of want to say, I want to work 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, or something?
Ideally, I would just do maybe 2 days, 3 days a week,
Okay.
and then the rest would be for my projects.
Mm-hmm.
Not because, and the reason is because I have a business, right? Like I have the community, so I couldn't just like shut down the community for 3 or 4 weeks. That wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this would be a possibility. Like have a short-term project of 1 month, focus, get some money, and then go back to indie making. That would be nice. Mm-hmm. The thing is, like now I have the community. Like I have my business going on that I have to maintain. So yeah, ideally, I would like something that would give me some space during the week.
Totally.
To focus on the community.
I think too, something that's important to point out of what you just said is that when you have momentum, the community has momentum. So just comparing it with the situation I find myself in, my situation is work on a thing that has momentum, that you're being paid for and you add a bunch of value and respected for, blah, blah, blah. And throw a bunch of work into the void that has no momentum or anything like that. Yeah. But you have something that's pulling you back, which I think is pulling you towards something,
right? Yeah.
Which is really, I think that's a game changer because it keeps just like you said earlier, like keeping that focus.
Yeah.
Like how do you create that mental space? And it's like this thing demands it.
Yeah.
So it takes it by force.
Definitely. Yeah. But at the same time, and I've even had this conversation with Mark. I always have the feeling, like, the question is when to stop a project, right? So when a project makes no money or has no users after a few months of trying to get them, that's obvious. You need to stop it. You are just simply not solving a problem.
Right.
But what if you have something like HiF, which is like, some people are really happy with it, and there's money, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
And I've interviewed a lot of people, and including Mark, and including Peter Levels, Julian recently, or their growth, and now they are like all, I don't know about Mark, but like I assume like maybe 100K ARR or something at least, and Peter Levels making much more, and
sure.
The growth was much faster.
Right.
Like it's nothing compared to what's happening in the community. The growth was like 1K in the first month with like a shitty product, and then 10K in the third month. I don't know, something like this.
Yeah.
And I don't have this with the community. So sometimes I think maybe it's a curse to have something that is somehow working, but not enough to pay the bills. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is something that I, after the consulting that I was doing, I feel like I got a little bit of that, catching that lightning in a bottle. Like I would cold email people, and I was getting responses, and they were like, let's set up a call. Like I don't even have to ask, of just like, oh, hey, this is what I do, and I want to know how you handle this. And they're like, I want to know how you handle this. I want to have a call with you. So like to feel the market pulling you is like, it's a real thing. I haven't had that experience yet, but part of me remembers that feeling of like, oh wow, I think I might have something.
Yeah. So that was happening with the shred company.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's all about trying to find that. I don't know. I mean, I would love to hear your opinion on this, because when I started this podcast, I wanted to find the recipe for success. I don't know. I was convinced that there was a set of rules or set of like steps that by following them, you'd always find success or avoid failure, So that's why I interviewed a lot of people. And there are a few things that I understood, at least in the indie making world, that make a dent, which the first one is having an audience.
Right.
It's like, it's completely different, right? So when you have an audience, it's much easier to validate an idea, to get initial momentum and everything. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something that it's really important. And then is solving a problem with real demand in a market that is willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
And this is not easy.
No.
Like, we are pulled towards the things that we love. I'm pulled towards indie making and pulled towards like B2C, which normally these people, like, they don't like to pay. Like indie makers, and they're cheap. They don't have money, right? So like I see a lot of people making tons of money with no code, for instance, because there's so many people now that they have no other option. Like, they don't know how to code. So if they want to build something, they need to pay. So it's already in their idea. It's okay. I'll just pay whatever, 10, 30, $40 to have this tool so that it can enable my business.
Yep.
Is there something that you have discovered with your talks with Mark and with your interviews that it's kind of a game changer?
I think so. I'm really jealous of Mark because he's very good at, I mean, like, for numerous reasons. Mark is just such a kind soul and really wants to help and teach.
Yeah.
And I think it's just who he is. So for him, it almost feels like he gets this high off of parachuting into a community and just like really listening and helping people.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think that's the recipe for success. Like, just being as helpful as possible. Because I think maybe that kind of is an interesting way to look at what a community is.
Yeah.
How can I help people like me? How can we get together and help each other? Of just like, I mean, there's strength in numbers and having somebody understand you in a way that maybe you don't even know.
It's a great point. It's a great point because the first thing you do when you start your indie making projects, once you have it done, like, you want to spam it everywhere. Like, you want all the attention. Right? Like, you're like, hey, look at me. I have this, right?
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That's something that I guess a lot of people make this mistake. But what you should do is like really understand the community you are in, understand your users, bring value to them, help them. It's all about them. And then once you gain their trust, maybe they will look at you. But you need to gain the trust first, right?
Yeah.
So definitely listening and being excited about a community. It's something that it's extremely important.
Totally. It's funny, actually. I actually disagree with you about the audience. I hate building an audience.
Really?
I really, it's a precursor for me for any business I want to start. I don't want it to be based on my audience. I want to go to where people, like, I don't want people to necessarily come to me. Like, Peter Lowes is a very interesting person because I wonder who follows him. Are his followers for hot takes? Are they for his general ethos? Because I follow him for the hot takes. I mean, I've only just become a digital nomad, but I don't necessarily use Nomad List or Interior AI. But I don't want to, I don't want any business I start for the precursor to be, okay, so first of all, go out and like get a bunch of Twitter followers.
Yeah.
I would much prefer to figure out where users are and what the correct, or what the distribution methods are to reach them. It's possible that like maybe one follows the other. Like, I spend enough time in a subreddit that people find me and follow me on Twitter. That's fine. Yeah. But it just makes starting a business feel impossible. Like, all right, first thing, I gotta go out and build a Twitter audience.
Yeah.
And I know that that's way oversimplifying things. Like, there's Amy Hoy and Alex Hillman run 30 by 500. I bought that course. And learning about like, how do you drop into a watering hole and to write blog posts and set up an email captures that people want to hear from you because you're giving them, they're on fire and you're putting them out. You're the only bucket of water to put out their pain.
Yeah, of course. If you find such a problem to solve, then I don't think you need an audience, right? Because everyone is looking for it.
Right.
I see that happening a lot with no code, right? Like with Notion forms, for instance, with Julian. He basically created forms for Notion, something that didn't exist, but everyone needed.
Yeah.
So that was the moment he started. Everyone was like, "I need it! Like, it's amazing." And if I could find that problem, I would love that. The issue is like, I don't think it's that easy, at least for me, to find this kind of problems to solve.
Yeah.
And when you have an audience, this allows you to take something and you're immediately ahead of your competition because you already have people that trust you. And then when you're launching, let's say you're launching on Product Hunt, for instance, that's a great example because before I have an audience, I launched the community. You know how many upvotes I got? I got 6.
Oh.
6 upvotes. To be honest, I didn't know anything about Product Hunt. So it's like I launched it at any hour and waited and nothing happened. It's like, what the fuck? Like, this is crazy.
Sure.
But then, after having an audience and realizing how Product Hunt properly works, I launched it and I got like, I think, top 5 product of the day, like 300 upvotes, a bunch of reviews, just by like having these people that trust me and they're like, yeah, Tiago, I'll help you out. So this immediately gave me a boost and took me to the next level. Same when I want to validate. Of course, this needs to be an audience and I need to be creating something for them, right? It doesn't matter having like indie hackers audience and then, I don't know, building something about gardening, right? Like most of the people don't care. But if you know that that's your area, and if you want to focus on that, at least from everyone that I interviewed, and it's funny, like for instance, Mark, right? Like he's doing this project of like starting an idea without his audience. Like he didn't even share. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it seems I was just listening to the episode. And he said like it probably will fail. I bet. If I don't know what is the idea, but if it's somehow related to no code or indie hacking with this audience, I think the success. And now it would be really interesting to see if you like share the idea, if it would actually have a different impact.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That is such a good experiment to run because I guess that's it. You said it perfectly. I guess for me, when I think about building an audience, I think about I don't necessarily know what's going to work. So if you pick a group of people to service and you dedicate yourself to that group, then having a following makes perfect sense. And Mark is a great example of this. Working in the no-code space and cultivating other no-coders and then being dedicated to it and continuing to launch other things for no-coders. That's a flywheel. That's for sure great. I'm just afraid of, I guess my problem is that I'm so afraid of committing to one area or servicing one group of people because I have no momentum that trying to build a Twitter audience feels like an unnecessary precursor of like, maybe I need, rather than, it's like it's too early to build trust. You don't even know who you're going to help.
It helps when you already have a project, for sure. Like you want to build something again around gardening, and then you start discovering where people that are into that hang out and everything. But you're already building something, so that gives you the motivation. But yeah, I think in general it really ends up helping. But I understand what you mean, like just building it. But there's a few people, like tomorrow actually I'm interviewing no, not tomorrow, Friday, Simon Heuberg, the guy from FeedHive. And I'm doing a little bit of research, and that's basically what he did. Is like, okay, first I'll build an audience, and he built it, and like he reached, I think, 30K followers on Twitter.
Wow.
And then he launched a product that in the market is very saturated, right? Like there was buffer, there was a lot of schedulers, and then he comes like, okay, I'll build FeedHive. So it definitely helped him.
Sure.
And in the indie hacking world, where you don't have money to spend on ads, because a lot of startups, what they do is like most of the budget. Why do you need 5 million? Is it for developers, R&D? No, it's marketing. Like I'll put all the ads possible.
Totally.
But for indie hackers, you don't have that money to spend, right? So you either nail it into like that niche, and the perfect product, people are really looking for it. If you don't have that, I think it's going to be really hard to grow.
Yeah, I mean, we have to understand we have to get the edges that we can get. Because we can't compete monetarily. We have to compete we have to run a race that we have a chance of winning.
Exactly. Yeah. And going back a little bit to the job, we said we had a few topics to discuss, and this one is something that I think it's really interesting. So at the moment, I'm trying to find this compromise. Like I don't want to find a side job. But I have to, right? Like it's been too long. I'm burning my savings. I want to reach the end of the month with more money than I started, kind of thing, you know? So I'm trying to I've never worked freelance. I've never done any of that. So I'm trying to see what are the possibilities, right? So here's what's going on my mind. First, maybe I thought that I could just do like small scripts and bots for other people running communities. Because I run communities, I build bots, I know the expertise, I know the area. Yeah. So there's so many people are running communities, I could just do that. And I have some cool ideas for bots, and they really work in my community. So I've emailed and tried to reach out to a bunch of people with communities, basically offering my services.
Right.
And I got almost no answers. And the ones that did say okay, we're not looking for that. We don't need your service at the moment.
Okay.
The second thing is the idea of a fractional CTO.
Okay.
Which is very exciting. It's something that I hear a lot of indie hackers speaking about.
Yeah.
And it seems such a cool title and such a cool thing. I'm a fractional CTO. I just help people hire and blah, blah. I know that you also have some experience helping people, companies with hiring process and everything.
Yeah.
So I had today a meeting with a startup. They are just really, really starting. All of them have side jobs, okay. But they were able to come up with some money. I don't know how. And they want to build this CRM.
Okay.
And they are trying to see either they would just give this to, oh my God, I just said it. I will give this to a company, like a consultancy company, an agency, they will build this for us.
Yeah.
But they want to have someone that is somehow part of the team that is keeping an eye into the code, making sure that everything works fine.
Yeah.
And at first they wanted a full-time CTO. I kind of convinced them they don't need it, or at least that I wouldn't do it as a full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, okay, let's talk. And today we had our first meeting. And in the end, they were making a bunch of fair questions that I had no idea how to answer. First of all, how long will you stay with us? Mm-hmm. You build this, after 6 months, will you stay? Will you help? Mm-hmm. Are you going to hire yourself the people? Or are we going to hire and then you manage them?
Mm-hmm.
How long do you want to work per week as well? And how much money will you ask for?
Right.
So those are a bunch of questions that I have no idea how to answer.
Okay. So maybe a good place to start with is, what do you want? So you're taking a job because you have to make money. Let's take a time frame out of it for now. Do you have an idea of what you might charge for an hourly rate?
I would say, I guess around $80
okay.
Per hour. 50 to 80 depends how long I work, I guess.
Sure. And I should ask too, are the people who are hiring you, are they technical?
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. Do you have other people in your network who are freelancers?
Freelancers, yes. Okay. And fractional CTOs as well.
Okay, cool.
I need to reach out to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I got started with freelancing, rate for me is one of the biggest questions, because I knew I was capable of working full time. So I said I can give you this many hours a week, but then it's well, how much do I charge? Mm. So for me, it was just triangulation of, I talked to a bunch of different people, I saw a bunch of different rates, I kind of put them in an average, and I took the average. Mm. And every time I get a new client now, I just increase it by $5 to $10 per hour. I charge Canadian dollars.
Okay.
So I just increase it by $5 to $10 per hour, and no one has pushed back on me yet.
Okay.
So, so I guess working backwards from what you want, of so how much money do I want per month, or what's my, what's your goal? Maybe you want to save 50,000 euro, so that you can go back full time on your work. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's all right, well, how, depending on my rate, how long is that going to take me? And then you can kind of figure it out from there.
Right.
And then from there, you can kind of start to set expectations with your clients of okay, well, how much money do they have, and how much can they afford to pay you over how much time? Mm-hmm. Because maybe they think they want someone full time right now, but that's going to burn their runway a lot faster than if you extend it out. Maybe you'll be able to be with them for longer and give them more consistent support over time versus a big burst of energy.
Right. Yeah.
Hiring.
That's a very good. Yeah.
Because it really depends on what they want. Yeah. Because if they're not technical and they're building a technical product and they trust you, then they need their hands held. They need somebody reliable in there that can advocate for them.
Yeah. But how would you do it? So the thing is, like, they already told me how much money they have.
Okay.
They already told me that's our runway.
Sure.
And then I think, okay, can we spend it all? Like, what is the situation, right?
Right.
So do I decide my paycheck? How would you prefer doing it? So would you say, okay, I will take care of everything. I'll get a team. I'll start the hiring process and manage, and maybe also do a little bit of coding. Or would you like prefer to say, like, you select a bunch of candidates, I help in the hiring process, and I help like just doing an overview on what they are doing, but I don't do any code. I just keep an eye on things.
Yeah, my opinion here is about transparency into the work that's getting done. Because the problem is, if they're not technical or they've never worked with a technical team before, they probably don't understand, what do I get for 2 weeks of a full-time programmer?
Yeah.
And like, you've built a schema out, but like, I don't really understand. Can I use that? Like, can you demo that for me? So like, helping them to understand where the project is at and what their pace is, I think is probably really important. Well, I'm just, I'm spitballing. If I were non-technical and I gave a big pot of money to a technical person and they promised me the world, I would say, great, I would like weekly updates on how the world is going.
Yeah.
So,
makes sense.
I would imagine that you could potentially write code. Like, as a freelancer, I'm very capable of saying, this is what I'm working on this week. And you start to feel your clients out in terms of their risk profile of like, okay, sometimes by the end of the week, they only want they want a firm plan. So when I get to the end of the week, I've accomplished everything I said I would do. And maybe that means you have to be very conservative in what you promise.
Yeah.
Others are more forgiving. So you can say, I'm going to take a bigger chunk, but it's going to take more time. And I'm not really sure when it's going to happen, but I don't know when it's going to be complete. But I also don't have to spend as much time proving it out. I can just get to work.
Yeah.
And I imagine, your job as the fractional CTO is to report on how it's going. So how's the work going? How's this going? And if it's just you writing code, that's not so bad, because you can kind of keep the whole system in your head. But as developers start to come online, you bring them on one at a time, and they start to get a better understanding of what pace looks like.
Right.
And that's probably really important to them.
Makes total sense. So I never thought of it. Like, they have no idea about the tech area and everything. So they need someone, that's what they're hiring basically, someone that translates this to them and assures them that things are getting done. Like, they don't really care if I code or not. They just care that, okay, we need this done by this deadline, right?
And like, they're paying you for an outcome is the best way to think about this. Like, we're used to billing by the hour, but the reality is, like, they're paying you for an outcome. And if it's just you coding, then you can start to set an expectation of how long until this is done. But if you have enough money to start hiring people and to bring more on and to be able to take on more work, they're going to get a better sense of, when we add more staff, this is what the result is. And like, at least for me and all the work that I do, I'm always racing towards something demoable so that you can always attach the work that you're doing to the demo that you're doing. So, I'm building a new screen, I'm building a new this. And this is how it changes what you already have. So it's always a playback to, this is what you bought this week. And I don't know if that's necessarily like a healthy pattern to be in, because sometimes it's not that clear. But my clients are always very happy when you show them something, especially when they're non-technical, because it looks like magic.
No, makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting because when I am as an indie maker, I don't have to like satisfy anyone. Like, I take all the consequences, I take all the risk.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? And that, of course, there's a lot of bad things about that, right? A lot of stress, anxiety.
Oh yeah.
But in this case, I also feel a little bit stressed out because I've never done this before.
Sure.
And these people are trusting their money, money that I don't know how they got it. Maybe they asked around, whatever, on this. And like, what if I'm not able to deliver? It's not only me, right? If I'm not able to deliver my project, the indie lottery, the community, okay, fuck it. It's my fault. I have the risk. I control everything.
Mhm.
In this case, I don't know. It stresses me out just to think about. Man, I need to hire people. I need to like get this done. And what if like I don't like them, or what if they start. They just keep on asking for more things. Like managing a client, and it's different kind of a challenge, I'd say.
I totally agree. But I'm willing to bet that you've actually done this in your career. Like you had a boss or a project manager or a product manager who said, "Where is this? Can we have it by the end of the quarter?"
Yeah.
And you're saying, "Well, let's take a look at the plan and let's see, is there something we can cut? Can we get us closer to the goal? Can we decrease complexity? Is there something we can do?" Like, is that something you've done before in your career?
Sure. Yeah.
This is no different.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
Like it's really, I'm a planner. So for me, it's how do I identify where the risk is in any one project and proceeding. Mm-hmm. So then from there, it's like, let's keep coming back to the plan. Mm-hmm. And like the plan for me is the holy grail of how do my clients understand the work that I'm doing. Yeah. So as long as you come up with a plan and you set some clear milestones, then you're just continuing the trust that you have. And if you can't meet those milestones, that's okay. It's up to them to decide, is this okay? Is it not okay? Mm-hmm. And all you can do is, just like with any software project, right? Beginning to understand your velocity. How can I understand how much I can ship in a week? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have slow weeks and sometimes you have fast weeks. Yeah. But taking your velocity and relaying it back to the plans, you can show your clients what you've done.
Yeah.
So I agree. The pressure is absolutely there.
Yeah.
The pressure is there.
No, the pressure is that it's like, it's some, there's the what is it called, the syndrome, the syndrome. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. I always forget this word. Fuck. There's this imposter syndrome immediately coming up. Sure. I part of me will think, you'll make a shitty job. You won't be able to, because I love coding. I absolutely love coding. Mm-hmm. But mostly as well because it's a way of creating, right? So I've worked like I moved full infrastructures to like AWS. Like I had companies depending on me on this, right? So it's not that I've never done this, but I always have this feeling that I don't care too much about using the latest, most performant library or whatever. I just want to make something that works. And I've seen, especially in this startup I worked, like I've seen that. When you just outsource your code to someone else, sometimes it's completely shit. And I've seen it. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm also a little bit afraid of delivering that, of delivering like a really shitty code. And I shouldn't say this because I really hope they don't listen to this.
Well, no, this is a very interesting thing because I've had a very similar experience here. So when I was building the backtester for my client, he really wanted. So he was not technical. And he really was like, no, Python is where it's at. We got to do this in Python. Now I'm a Java programmer. So I said, okay, well, if you want to do this in Python, I might not be the person that you want to hire because I have to skill up. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes. I didn't say that, but I basically was like, I'm going to have to familiarize myself with the technology. And in my mind, it's like, it's going to be slow and it's going to be shit. So I'm like, you've got to learn. So one thing, if I could do it differently, I don't know if I would go back and write it in Java, but when I think about risk, I think, man, I could de-risk this so much by picking my best language with the best framework, with the best ability to assess people. Like say you wanted to hire somebody, who else I'm going to be able to interview and tell if someone is a good Java programmer so easily. So it just de-risks everything. Like we often think, I want to pick the right tool for the right job. But maybe the right tool is the thing you know best that de-risks the project.
Good point. Yeah.
And what a launching off point. You can write things super fast. You don't have to worry about getting fancy. If you did need to cut a corner, it so well that you say, I'll make a bet here that it's fine, and if it is, there's a refactor I can easily do. I have to hire somebody, no problem. I can assess them super easily. Or even to say, I have a friend who's also a Java programmer, and he says that his friend is good. Perfect. There's network effects of the things and people
That's a really good point. This de-risk something. And also, I know that no matter what I do, there'll be a programmer down the line, they'll be like, "What the fuck is this shit code?"
Yeah. Oh my god.
They will be like, "Why did I use this? This is terrible." This is always happen, right?
Oh my god, this keeps me up at night. Of just like I can't like that client is going to give this code over to somebody, and he's going to say, "This is bullshit. This guy is an idiot," and I'm like, "Oh god, like, man."
That will happen.
It doesn't. Well, I mean, the nice thing is if you give yourself over to it and you know that it will happen, then it doesn't matter what you do. The outcome is a given regardless. So all you can do is your best.
Definitely. Yeah, very good points. I will definitely apply. Now the outcome of that meeting was that they will send me a bunch of like more information so that I can come up with a plan and put my ideas together.
Sure.
But let's see. I'm also excited about this, to be honest. It's something that's it's a more long-term commitment for sure, because it's not like freelancing only. Like I'm committing to these people and to this company, like as a fractional CTO. But it's also exciting. Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
It's a very interesting opportunity, and also, I mean, it's gotta feel good, right, to have somebody be like, "No, I really trust you, and I want you to handle this." Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Sure. Like, first thing comes to my mind is like, they don't know what they do.
No.
Like, oh my god. But it's true. What other topics do you want to talk about? Do you have some a list there?
Yeah, I got a few things. So something that I'm curious about is co-working. So I've had such amazing co-working opportunities in the last, let's call it, year. I started before I left Montreal. I'm a digital nomad now. I've been since June of this year. I started an Indie Hackers meetup.
Cool. It's really cool when you say. By the way, and you still know it.
No, it's a lot of fun. It's my wife and I. We're on the road.
Really cool.
But I've had amazing co-working opportunities. So before I left Montreal, I started an Indie Hackers meetup, and that's how I met Mark LG, my co-host. And I met a bunch of people, and I've co-worked with a lot of them. And now I've been living in Victoria, British Columbia, and the co-working space that I'm at is amazing. Like, we're throwing work back and forth. We've really created an awesome.
That's great. Yeah.
What's your experience been like with co-working? Like, what is your daily setup? Are you working at home? Are you co-working? What's up?
My daily setup is here in the desk, where I guess people cannot see it, but I basically wake up and work from here. I've tried co-working as well. I'm trying to like keep it as cheap as possible, so that's why I don't do it more often. Sure. I'm an extrovert, right? So I get energy by speaking with people.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm here alone, like the whole day, right? Mostly, like, it doesn't help. Like, the community really started helping, but because now I have people to talk.
Yeah.
And a lot of indie makers as well, and like we have a lot of chats. Even today, there's people in the community that's like, "Hey, let's have a chat about the fractional CTO thing." So it really helps. I first tried doing there's a co-working space really nearby here, so I thought, okay, let's go there and check it out. And my experience wasn't great, because I got there and most of the people there were startups, so like small startups, because I guess that's how a lot of the co-work spaces make money here. They rent a part of their office to a company.
Yeah, for a fixed term.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't know. I got there, and they didn't have like floating desks. They said, maybe you can stay in the kitchen. I was like, okay. I was like sitting now in the kitchen, and I don't know. I felt awkward.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, maybe I could put a little bit more time into like creating relationships here and like meeting people, but I didn't feel like it. So that one didn't work well. Then I returned, and I thought, okay, maybe it's not for me. Then I started like trying out other co-working spaces, and I tried the Now Beato one, with the crazy vibe, which was cooler, and there's more indie hackers there. So like now I'm in this desk with other people, so I thought, okay, this could be something interesting. And then the other one that I told you also, it's called Idea Space.
Yeah.
So definitely I can see myself doing all of these connections and like being energized by just being around these people. And mostly, if I now start getting a little bit more money, this is something that I would like to do.
Sure.
my ideal scenario would be like to have a bunch of indie hacker friends here in the city that we could like always agree to maybe thrice a week go to this place and work together and then have a beer and then chat and have like this kind of social life as well around the work. Because like I'm working a lot, right? Like I need the time also to focus, but I also need to just like grab a beer and chat a little bit. So that would be my ideal scenario. Plus the networking effect that you just said, it seems really, really exciting.
Yeah, I think of the co-working that I've done, especially in Victoria, the co-working space that I'm in is not necessarily technically focused. There are a few tech companies, but there's a lot of just individual consultants. There's a lot of creatives. So there's a lot of non-technical people that are looking for help or just looking to have a beer, have a good time. So I wonder if it might just be time invested. Like maybe you just have to be a familiar face, and then all of a sudden people feel comfortable speaking with you. Because like I don't know that I would call myself an extrovert, but my wife is always saying like you're making all these friends at the co-working space. Like I'm becoming our social life of just like the people who I'm meeting. So I mean, as an extrovert, like you would kill at a co-working space because everybody does want to talk. Like everybody wants to talk about what's going on and what they're working on, and especially if you're putting yourself in a position to go to a co-working space, you're kind of planting a flag. Like, I'm interested in being with other people, and people want to talk. They just have to figure out. They just need a nudge. Yeah. So like I imagine you would walk in and destroy. You would meet everybody, and everybody would want to talk to you. Yeah. I know what you mean though about it feeling a bit awkward, like being stuck in a kitchen and not having a space at a table is a little rough. Yeah, that was not the ideal situation for sure. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. I think as an extrovert, I think it's like I get energy by speaking with others. It's not like super. But definitely, I would need some time to be there and start. I'm not the kind of person that will approach someone out of the blue and like, "Hey, what are you doing?" So I would need like maybe to see the face and start doing that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting situation as well because I'm so comfortable at home. So like, do you go every day to the co-working space? I have to now because especially right now, since we've come to Europe. Our Airbnbs are very different. Like, is it going to be comfortable to work in? I really can't sit at a couch and work or a sofa. It just kills my back. So even most co-working spaces, like the chairs need to have a back, and like if it was adjustable height, that would be amazing. But even that's asking a lot sometimes. Yeah. So I'm in co-working spaces pretty much every day. Okay. That, and I also I like to separate my workspace from my chill space. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that's probably a great idea because I end up spending a lot of time working, and because I just come here and like work during like the night and everything. So having this would definitely help. So I think I love the concept, to be honest. Like to have a space for indie makers and freelancers, everyone working their own thing but together, in the same area. It sounds lovely. Definitely something that once I get a little bit more MRR, I'll start considering. Probably not doing every day. Yeah. But maybe twice a week, 3 times a week. Yeah, would make sense. Yeah, Fridays, at least for me, Fridays are always the funnest to go to the co-working space because everyone wants to quit at noon. So it's like, well, let's quit and go for a beer, or there's a beer fridge or a bar in the co-working space, and you can just have a drink and chat with people about what they're up to and that sort of thing. And I've made some great friends that way. Oh, cool. Yeah. Would you ever consider, I mean, I know that you're running an online space, but would you ever consider starting an in-person meetup, trying to find other people? That would be the goal. Like, I wish that the community would grow to a point where you could find WB members anywhere. Sure. And we all kind of share the same values. That's what a community is about, right? Like people that share the same values. So anywhere you go, you'll find your friends, and a lot of people in the community already met. I met already some people, and even there, like we have people from literally all around the world. So like sometimes people send me pictures like from Singapore, like, hey, I just met Max, and then like there's 2 of them, or like I just flew to Berlin and like met this member.
So this is really, really amazing how like building something that really connects people. And even online, you see people like sending postcards to each other and like bonding across a bunch of interesting things. Like it's mostly, of course, indie hacking, but even other hobbies. So what do you want to say around this? If I consider doing grill, yeah, ideally the community would grow to a point where we would also have like WB offices, and of course, it's already me speed thinking about like if this could be a grandiose kind of thing. But yeah, that would be a dream for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time online, but I think back to when I started the in-person meetup in Montreal, and like when I met Mark, and yeah, it's some of the funnest times.
Yeah.
And then to build that community with people, and like I see why you do it. Like it's so addicting.
Yeah.
The more people you meet that have a good time and want to come back and say like, oh, when is the next one? Like there's nothing more special than that.
And I mean, to be honest, I don't know if it wasn't for the community, if I would still be here. I would probably have quit before, because it's so crucial to have people to share your experience with.
It might be the thing.
Yeah.
It's momentum and bonding.
Yeah, bonding and seeing what they are doing, seeing what works for them. You know, it saves me time.
Yes.
Because I just, okay, this didn't work, I won't do it. Or this worked, let's do it. You know, let's help each other. So definitely, it's been great. I'm solving my own problem as well. So,
totally. Yeah. I've been curious if you have an opinion on expats in Portugal.
Yeah.
So
I love that topic.
This is very interesting because one of the big reasons we're here is my wife's business partner married a guy from Spain, and they moved to Portugal in September, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they're trying to rent an apartment and everything. So we've been chatting with them, and they are keenly aware of this, of their existence in the country. Are they driving up rents? Are they seeking a place to live? Is it making it harder for people who are from Lisbon to live here? How are they screwing with the economy? How are they changing the everyday lives of the people who already live here? Mm-hmm. So I've been curious. You said you were living in Germany. How long were you there, and when did you come back to Lisbon? Are you born and raised in Lisbon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating topic. I love this topic. I left in 2015 to go to Germany, and then returned 1 year ago.
Okay.
Precisely.
Okay.
Like, it was roughly precisely 1 year ago. So for 6 years I was in Germany, and so much has changed in Portugal and in Lisbon specifically. So much. So mainly because when I left, I guess not a lot of low costs were flying still to Portugal. There was not a lot of connections.
Okay.
So then like Ryanair started flying here, and like Eurowings, and suddenly Portugal became a very accessible place. And in Europe, it's like you're still in Europe, you still have all the perks of being in Europe, but like the weather is quite nice in comparison, like with Germany, for instance, and most Central Europe. So a lot of people just like start coming here and travel. So I always remember like being in Germany, a lot of my friends like, I just been to Porto for the weekend. I just been to Lisbon. I love it, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, really cool. Interesting. And then I'm in Germany, and I'm meeting all of these people and expats, and living the expat life is so much different than living the local life, right?
Yeah.
And I've noticed that now, right? I'm more like a local. I try to hang out as well with like my friends, because a lot of them now also come here or live here or like come here for a couple of months. Yeah. So I see what they do, and they're like, interesting, you do this. I don't. That's not how I experience the city. And then you had the Web Summit, this conference that I'm going as well in next week, which also started bringing a lot of attention of companies. You know, people are like, wait, people there, they don't get that much money. The salaries are quite low, you know? So it's kind of the India of Europe kind of thing. We can just go there. It's true. Like, it's funny because a lot of people also do like this sustainable fashion. They say like sustainable fashion. That means that it was made in Portugal, where the wages are also really bad. Okay. So like made in Portugal is really sustainable. Yeah. So people start like, okay, we can bring people there, we can start opening offices there, things are cheaper. And then at the same time, our government started to bring a lot of perks to digital nomads, and like you have less taxes and everything. So then a lot of expats and remote work, especially after COVID, started also coming to Portugal and living here. Like Peter Levels is a great example.
Yep.
He was like digital nomad and nomadic for a long time. Then he found Portugal and was like, yeah, this is a great place to like at least to be here like half a year or something. And he even like created a service to bring more people.
Yeah.
So suddenly we have this influx of people that are making great money, and they start saying, yeah, Portugal is cheap. And then for me and for my friends, well, I was in Germany, so I had different standards. For most of my friends, though, they were like, no, it's not. Like Portugal is not cheap, and it's actually not that different, like from Germany, and the rents are not that different. But of course, if you have a salary from Germany or salary from Canada or salary from America, US or something, yeah, it's quite cheap. So yeah, we're reaching to this point where the rents are super high.
Yeah.
And there's something which is unbelievable, which is even if you work full time, you might not have enough money to get a house, to rent or to buy whatever.
This scares me. This really scares me.
Yeah.
As somebody who wants to come for a month and experience Portugal, I don't want to hurt anybody. Like this is really scary.
Yeah. But at the same time, on the other side, I love it. Because finally we are getting like different people here, like with different mindsets, and they are bringing like this innovation and new mentalities to Portugal, something that we were really missing, So it's so exciting now. I love this, like, going out and like hearing like different languages and hearing people speaking English. And because I was an expat as well in the country where I didn't like fully understand I mostly didn't understand the language. So I really like to feel that the others feel comfortable here, and then we can speak the language. So when I see people, like now there's a lot of people also from like India, Bangladesh, Nepal, maybe doing this like, I don't know, Uber jobs and this kind of stuff. But I love it because they love coming here, and I speak with them. It's like, cool. I mean, it's so great to have different people here in Portugal. We really need it. We also have like a problem with population. Everyone is getting older, and that's also being somehow fixed. So you have like both sides, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I think my main concern is, I don't want to. It scares me to price people out of rent, because so in Canada we're going through this right now. We're in an intense housing crisis in Canada. Rents are going up. Forget buying. Like that's just like totally off the table. Like I was a developer making fantastic money, and I look at the mortgage you can get, and it's terrifying. Like, who wants to spend $1 million on a home with oh God, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I look at our housing situation, and I do not want to inflict that on anyone else. But I see what you mean. There is no panacea for anything. Everything has trade-offs.
Yeah. I don't think it's a problem that the expats should worry about, though. I think it should be like probably the government. I don't know. There should be a solution for that, but I don't think it should be an expat problem, right? I mean, for you, if you could pay cheaper for rent, you do it, right? Like it just like the thing is, like the market just evolves to that and say like, okay, people are willing to pay more. Let's get it. And now we are in this situation where everyone wants to rent. It's really shitty because like unless you have a partner to share your house with, mostly in Portugal you cannot get a house. So a lot of people in their 30s are living with their parents. Which makes no sense. You need to get your space. You need to do all of that. It's an interesting concept. I'm also very curious to know your opinion about like this digital nomad lifestyle and the remote work, and people like even if they are not nomadic, they like living more outside of the big cities because it's possible. Do you think this will continue? How do you see the future of work in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. think that as more things move online, people just want that flexibility. They want the flexibility to live life the way that they want. On the west coast of Canada, so I was on Vancouver Island in Victoria, and there's a lot of van lifers there. People who've converted Sprinter vans or whatever, or just living out of their cars by choice, and they are loving their life. It's a very temperate place, so it never really gets very cold. So it's a perfect place to do this. And they just use Starlink or whatever, or they tether to their phones and they want to work in nature.
Yeah.
They just want to go and live around.
Yeah.
And I look at that and think like, that is incredible freedom to just like grab life by the horns and just say, no, I just want to live where I want to live.
Yeah.
And they come back to the city and they take a shower and maybe they stay at an Airbnb for a few days, freshen up, and then head out again. But I look at that and think like, I wonder if that's going to happen for the rest of the world. Like, I mean, certainly as long as there's arbitrage, it will continue to exist. I mean, like, we've seen what's happened with Bali. Like, now Bali is no longer as cheap as it was. It's now astronomical. It's cheaper to live in Singapore than it is to live in Bali. So I think as long as arbitrage continues to exist, there will be people who want to exploit it. And I think it makes sense. Like, I think in Canada, this is a conversation I've been having in Canada for a while of, what are the opportunities that our generation has? Our parents didn't know it, but their opportunity was real estate. Turns out you can invest in a home and now it's worth potentially millions of dollars, which is great because your investment paid off. But now for somebody who can't get into the market, how do we find what's the next opportunity for us?
Right.
And it's starting to feel like maybe that is living in a low-cost place, taking your high salary, living in a low-cost place, and just banking way more.
Yeah.
And just living that life, waiting until you become financially independent.
My issue with that is, and also a little bit with being a digital nomad. And you've been doing that only since June, so it's still not a lot of time. But how do you manage friendships? Because for me, again, like as an extrovert, there's the people that I like, my work friends, and people that like I get the energy from just by chatting, but they're not really my friends. And then, I mean, they're my friends, but they're like big friends, Whereas for me, I describe friendship, a true friendship, as like a person that I just wouldn't mind just hanging out with. Like, we have nothing to do, and no plans, just like drinking a beer, chilling, and we just enjoy each other's company, right? Like, and this kind of friendship takes time, So in my ideally like social scenario, I would have all my good friends or a bunch of my good friends living at like a walking distance of me, and we could just like hang out, and there's no need for big plans or whatever. When you're like constantly flying around, like 1 month here, 1 month there, how do you manage that?
I manage it not well. I would say that I've continued the Zoom life of having, during COVID, we all did let's have Zoom beer. Let's do this. I still do that with a lot of my friends. They have kids. So even if we were to go visit them, they're on a timetable. They need to go to a place and take care of the kid. Like, their kids are their hobbies right now. Or they're at that age where the kids are their hobbies. So those types of friendships I have to maintain over Zoom.
Right.
Like, maybe they were living in other cities or that sort of thing, but I think for me it's like, even if we did live in the same city, they're on their own timetable. So to be able to go by and have a beer is disruptive for them, just where they are in their lives.
Right.
So I've been able to cultivate that continue to cultivate that over Zoom. But it's definitely not the same as, it's Saturday afternoon, like, let's just have a barbecue or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't have a great answer. I think I long for something like that. So I put a lot of energy into trying to cultivating it wherever I go. And the nice thing is people are always looking to hang out and they're always looking for friends. Yeah. Especially, I was definitely noticing this on the West Coast. One of the big, because there's so much, nature is a big part of life on the West Coast of Canada. Doing a lot of hikes, getting outdoors is a big draw of living there. So it's very common to be like, hey, we're going to do, it's a Monday after work, especially in the summer when it's light for so long. We're going to pop up to Mount Work and we're going to just hike it and come back. And you're like, okay, sure. So like these kind of impromptu hikes.
Yeah.
So there definitely tends to be a lot of, oh, what are you doing on Saturday? And like Saturday is the big day to say like, all right, we're gonna do a hike.
Yeah.
So in order to, I don't know, like there's lots of opportunities there to like join into somebody's posse and then like, I don't know, do an activity together.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So you just need to make sure you connect with these people that are living a similar lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. And I it's interesting also what you mentioned about Zoom. I think that more and more we are living in this kind of metaverse,
Yes, we are.
where, I mean, my life is my laptop, right? Like I wake up and I open my phone, then I go to my laptop, then I watch Netflix. I meet a lot of people on the laptop and everything. So even though I'm not like immersed in it, it's somehow already happening, right? We are already living online. Is this going to be the future more and more that like people will get their VR sets and like hang out with people across the world?
I mean, the technology is going to have to get a lot better because I can't put VR goggles on without getting sick.
Really?
Every time I put them on, I get so sick. Oh, man. But it's a good question. I mean, let's say that it did work. What do we do? I mean, I think it just depends on what you want.
Yeah.
I think that for me, a touch barrier is really important. Or not barrier, but breaking the touch barrier, I guess I should say. Physical contact is, I don't know if you've ever read that like funny book of like the 5 languages of love.
No,
but it's just it's kind of a silly book.
I think I've heard that though.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's like pseudo psychology or anything.
About like being like a visual person, auditive person.
Kind of. Yeah, so it's like how do you what are the things that you want out of a relationship?
Right.
So let's see if I can remember them. There are words of affirmation.
Right. I remember that.
Physical touch. Yeah. Quality time. Acts of service. And gifts of affection or gifts, something like that. And we all kind of have 1 or 2 that we want. Yeah. And then there's the 1 or 2 that we give. So for me, I'm a big physical touch person. Right. I want it in all my relationships. So I definitely find that I get along very well with like Latin American people, for example, because we're very touchy and huggy. Yeah. So it's something I really like. So I tend to gravitate towards people like that. And that's something that I would need in this metaverse.
That's something missing complete. From Zoom now. Yeah. You don't have that.
I need a hug.
Yeah. You cannot have hugs. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Good point. Yeah, I don't know. It seems that we are still a little bit far away from that, but you never know. Never know.
Yeah, like it's very cool to see how much has been invested in it and how they're trying to make it interesting and cool and mimic real life. And with enough investment and enough care, you can take it a lot of places. I'm bullish on it. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, same. So, what are your like next steps, right? So you freelancing a lot, but you want to like do your own thing as well.
Yeah.
What are your plans? How you want to accomplish that in the next year or so?
Yeah, that's a powerful question that I've been asking myself a lot lately. So like, I'm very open about this, but like, I go to therapy weekly because this is really hard. Yeah. Like I have dreams for myself and I want to accomplish them. And I get in my own way. I'm very good at self-sabotaging myself. So what I've learned, most of my growth over the last probably 2 years has been learning to meditate and learning to, hear the things that my body is telling me, hear the things that are going on in my mind, and talking myself down from the ledge of the things that my irrational body is telling me. So where do I want to go? Well, I would love to start a product. And I think even to take it back from that, what I really want to find people that are fun, that I can serve, that can derive value from the work that I do, whether it's a product or a service or whatever, and engage in that trade and be paid for that work. Like, I get it a little bit with freelancing, I have a skill that people really love and they were willing to pay me for it, but I want to do it on a grander scale. I want to help more people. Right now with freelancing, I'm kind of helping just one client at a time. And that's fun, but it's not taking me closer to my goal. So right now, I've been, the discussion I was having with my therapist today was this question of boundaries, being able to work 3 hours a day versus 4. Or, on 3 hours on your stuff and 3 hours on someone else's. And I've worked really, really hard over the last year to try to build that boundary up, to be able to work half and half, because it's scary to try to say, well, I'm going to quit my income and have no income and try to work on a SaaS. And for example, the SaaS ramp of death is real. It takes a long time to turn a profit. So trying to figure out I don't want to just be on a slow ramp, the ramp of death forever. I would rather have that, side income. But I'm only now coming to grips with the fact that I don't think I can do it. I don't, this experiment has failed. I'm not making the progress that I want to make. I'm making good money, and it's nice to be able to distract yourself for a while with client work. But the reality is, it's I have a freelancing hangover. It was fun yesterday, but now I'm paying the price of I'm not getting any closer to the dream that I have.
So you don't feel fully fulfilled with the current work?
I feel like I'm not giving myself a shot. I left a very well-paying job where I was really respected because I had a dream. And I'm not following through on that. I could have stayed at that job. And I'm trying not to I'm not trying to sound too judgmental about it, because I've really been trying to ride this line between two things. And then a number of people I've spoken to were like, oh yeah, I actually couldn't do it. I did a sprint, I made some money, and then I quit and did my own thing, and then they just go back and forth because they're like, I can't do both at the same time. And I think I'm just finally ready to admit to myself that I can't. I have to maintain focus. So I think probably my next steps are figuring out what are my financial I do a lot of budgeting, and I pay very close attention to my runway and everything. So figuring out what the next few months look like. Turns out digital nomading, not cheap.
Really?
If you're staying in
Airbnbs and stuff, yeah, of course.
Because you're paying a premium for the furnished places. So unless you're going to live in cheaper places, it turns out to be a little more expensive.
You need to go to Asia, I guess.
Man, this is it.
Yeah.
We have a dog. My wife and I have a dog. So that is very tricky, because getting a dog to Asia is not super simple.
Did you bring it here?
So we didn't bring her this time, but our plan is... so the plan right now is Portugal just opened up a new visa. So we're going to come back the plan is to come back in January for 6 months, and we'll bring the dog.
Oh, man, I love it. That's the great thing about Lisbon. There's so many indie hackers now. We can do a meetup. We can do another meetup. That'll be amazing. I mean, that's... I first of all, I think definitely having the support, going to therapy and meditation as well, that's really game changer. I should do it more often, but every time I'm starting to feel really overwhelmed, stressed and anxious, meditation always helps to do this a little bit and relax, and I don't know, appreciate the things that I've done as well, so being present and appreciate what I've achieved. And I can only recommend going also full time, because it gave me the opportunity to really take my project serious. Now I think, I'm indie hacker. Before I was a guy with a lot of hobbies, or a lot of side projects, and now I'm people, everyone around me say, okay, that's what he's doing. In the beginning, it was hard to admit. I would say, I'm I'm a software developer taking some time off. Now, no, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
That's what I am. I might not be making a lot of money, but that's what I am.
Yes.
And now, even if I work for others just to make money, I'm still an entrepreneur. That's my passion, and that's how I feel fulfilled and everything.
That's so good, man.
With that said, it's extremely stressful at times. It's really stressful not knowing how to make money. What can I do to make it better? I see people around me doing a lot lot of money. I see also much more people not doing less, but we don't see them that often, right? We only see the ones making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at times it's really stressful, and then it's like there's times where it's better and times that gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the roller coaster situation, definitely, and everything you see on Twitter, that's for sure. Like you get a new Stripe notification, bam, I'm the best. It's been a week without any new clients. Well, I'm the worst. So it's been like that, and definitely one thing that is really hard. But I've get this from a lot of people I interview. Focus on the metrics you can control.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on learning. Like I want to learn new things. I want to learn SEO, whatever. This is something I can control. Work X hours per day or whatever. Like things that you can control. If you focus too much on the money, if you focus too much on the followers on Twitter, whatever, things that you do not control, you will end up frustrated.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is a very subtle thing that, like, I feel like I have to relearn over and over again. Focusing on the things that you can control. Like you can't control outcomes. All you can do is control your level of input.
Yeah.
And it hurts when it doesn't work. It fucking hurts. And realizing like, okay, well, maybe there's something to learn here, or maybe there isn't. Maybe it's not worth spending your time trying to figure out why it didn't work, and just move on to the next thing. It hurts.
Yeah.
But I mean, the nice thing is that the past is not necessarily a predictor of the future.
Yeah.
You just have to keep taking swings.
And that's also, by the way, something that I've realized. A lot of these people that have a lot of success have failed a lot. Like a lot.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of products. Even now I was checking, like Tony didn't share that. Like in the past like year or so, he built like 10 products.
Yeah.
Only and 2 of them are making great money because he's a great builder and marketer and everything. But he still builds 10 products.
Yeah.
You know, how many have you built? Like I've built like 3 or 4 and not even. And so definitely it's like doing a lot and failing a lot, accepting that's the life. That's how what being an indie maker is.
Yep.
Some people are lucky and they're able to do it, achieve it faster. But yeah, in the end, it's also like it's a stamina. It's like a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Make sure that even though it's super hard and I'm not doing a great job at it, make sure to have like a healthy balance, and you also do the things you love, and you have some time off and everything. That's really important because you need to take it for the long way, right?
Yeah, that's something that really killed me over the pandemic was my hobby is physical fitness. I love moving my body and acquiring new skills. It's a lot of fun. And then when the pandemic happened, I mean, Montreal was terrible. Our lockdowns were awful. I couldn't get to the gym for like more than 18 months. So a lot of the skills that I cultivated and just like my conditioning was off. I really like being in a gym. So I can't think of a bigger punishment than working out at home. It's horrific. But
that's interesting.
Like now that I'm back and I can move my body again in the atmosphere that I want, it just reminds me what working at 100% capacity looks like.
Yeah.
And then it's like when you get down to like 80%, you think like, oh man, like I'm not giving it my all today, or something's missing. And then, when you get up to that 100%, you think, I think, I can do anything. I can conquer anything.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. For me, it's the same. Going back to doing sports also like was a game changer for me.
Oh, it's so nice.
Yeah, to be more healthy mentally as well. And also like don't feel like I'm always sitting down. So it's just going out and doing something high intensity or anything. It's definitely great.
That's so nice.
Cool,
dude.
Great chatting with you.
Yeah, man, thanks for having
me. It was 1 hour and 34 minutes, so I think people will have a lot to listen to. We spoke about a lot of topics, but really, really interesting. Thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited that you're coming here for 6 months.
That's the plan.
In the next year, so that'll be really cool for sure. Maybe it's the time that I'll go to a co-working space. And we can start creating our little indie hackers group there.
Yeah, let's take over. I mean, you start laughing and people are like, what's so funny over there?
Yeah,
what are these two up to?
I have a bug. I lost another client.
Yeah. To the pub.
Yeah, to the pub. Anyways, Matt, great. Thank you so much. Cheers, it was a pleasure. Yeah. Let's say hi to the people there. Bye. Oh no, I mean, fuck. Well, let's go back and speak about our shit.
Sure.
You have a podcast, right?
I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our podcast is Startup to Something. So
you
can catch us at startuptosomething.com. It's hosted by me and my very good friend, Mark LG.
What does LG stand for?
Levin Gagnon. So Mark has a French name. It's Mac. Mark runs powerimporter.com, a syncing tool a no-code tool to sync between Airtable and Webflow. It's a killer product. It's awesome. Mark is an incredible product designer, and he's built something really great. I am on Twitter. I don't have anything to promote other than the podcast.
What is everything will be in the show notes anyways.
Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter at @ndgale. I tweet a lot about feelings. I like when I like to validate other people's feelings. It's something we don't talk about often enough. Yeah. So I'm really open about therapy and mental health and everything.
That's great. Yeah. It's really important also to speak about that. I tried to interview a few people also around that topic in the podcast, but I don't think it's talked enough. So a lot of people suffer in silence. So it's great to have more people like you doing that, like showing that face as well in the building public space.
Yeah.
Cool. And I guess for me, everyone already know. Want to be entrepreneur? Links in the descriptions and everything. So again, now for real. Thank you so much.
Boom. Cheers, man.
Cheers.